Yep, this is gonna be another one of those videos, huh? The Skullgirls tutorial is pretty thorough, but it's not 100% comprehensive. Hopefully, I can help fill in the gaps. Today, we're talking about every known, useful, true Kara cancel. Okay, but what's a Kara cancel? It's a bit of a walk to get there, so just hear me out for a bit. So, there's this technique in Street Fighter 4 that exploits a quirk of the button priority system to make links easier to perform. The way this works involves pressing a button on some frame and another button on exactly the next frame. This is often noted as A into B, while pressing both at the same time is often noted as AB or A plus B. This technique, first called priority linking, then P-linking, then simply plinking, refers not only to using this input to make links easier in Street Fighter 4, but also to the input method in general. Each square is one frame of in-game time. The top inputs are simultaneous. The bottom inputs are consecutive. This is what plinking is. Though most often done accidentally, this can occasionally be exploited intentionally to cause strange things to happen. For example, in Skullgirls, most commands that require simultaneous button presses can actually still register if the buttons are just almost simultaneous, instead of requiring both buttons happen on exactly the same frame. This works because most one-button commands will allow you to cancel the first few startup frames into relevant two-button commands. Here, Cerebella's throw normally has 7 frames of startup. However, plinking light punch into light kick results in an 8-frame throw instead. This is because she enters light punch startup on frame 1, then she gets the light kick command on frame 2, and the game switches her to a normal throw instead. This is intended behavior. If she couldn't interrupt the first frame of her stand jab with a throw, then a throw would require both buttons to happen on exactly the same frame. This is a consequence of making throws easier. She can't do a crouching medium punch into a throw, though, because the throw input doesn't overlap with the medium punch button at all. This is also intended behavior. Only light punch and light kick normals have a Kara window to cancel into a throw, because they're the only moves that need one for throws to be easy. This kind of technique is typically referred to as a Kara cancel, Kara being a Japanese word meaning empty. But this complicates things a bit. In Skullgirls, pretty much every normal can cancel into any special move, super, tag-in attack, or snapback at any point, and pretty much every special can cancel into any super until the end of your recovery frames. Here, Cerebella cancels the slide from her crouching medium punch into a command grab, boosting the grab's range. This is also kind of a Kara cancel, since the medium punch is still an empty one, but it's a different concept altogether. Simply whiffing a normal and canceling into a special move is something I would prefer to call a whiff cancel, or something like that. But everybody has been calling these Kara cancels for a decade, so it's best not to rock the boat too much. Instead, this video is only concerned with what I'm calling true Kara cancels, the old-fashioned kind that rely on exploiting the button leniency for two-button commands to cancel moves in a way that they otherwise couldn't. We're also only concerned with useful Kara cancels, ones that do something functional because of the moves that are being cancelled. Something like Bella's standing light punch into throw is not a useful Kara cancel because sneaking a single frame of light punch startup into your throw startup just makes the throw slower without actually doing anything productive. However, because of the same logic, Bella can cancel the first 2 frames of a light punch lock and load into diamond drop. This has a neat side effect. Most special moves build 2.5% of a bar of meter on the first frame of startup, just for doing a special move. A plinked diamond drop like this, though, goes into one frame of lock and load startup, builds some meter, then goes into the first frame of diamond drop startup, building meter again. So, a plinked diamond drop builds more meter than a normal one, but this isn't because of something special about lock and load. It's just what happens when you do any Kara cancel. We want the first move to do something. Well, like what? Here we turn to My Little Pony Fighting is Magic, because it's a game I can easily modify for the sake of explanation. I've changed the throw input to B plus C, added an input leniency buffer, and I've slightly increased the forward movement of Pinkie Pie's standing C attack. Yeah, slightly. Her standing B attack also has a ton of forward movement, but it gets to that movement at the end of the move instead of the start. So, pressing B and C on the same frame gives a normal throw. Pressing B, then C on the next frame does a useless Kara throw. This happens because standing B's movement happens outside the Kara window. The part you can cancel into a throw isn't part of the move that does something useful, so the Kara throw is just slower and adds nothing. But pressing C, then B on the next frame does this crazy flying Kara throw. This happens because standing C's movement starts on the first frame, which is inside the Kara window, so the Kara throw is slightly slower, but adds a ton of forward movement, increasing its range significantly. So, the order of plinking often matters for cancels like this. This version of Pinkie's B into C Kara throw is useless, but her C into B Kara throw is nuts. Kara cancels aren't somehow magically stealing the properties of other moves due to glitched behavior. You do some move for a frame or two, then cancel into a different move. If the first move doesn't do its thing before the Kara window closes, you won't see any strange behavior. Okay, that's a lot of information. Let's stop to regroup a bit. Pressing buttons on consecutive frames instead of simultaneously can sometimes result in strange behavior from the game. This is commonly referred to as a Kara cancel. This video is going to explain all of the situations where this strange behavior can be exploited to do something theoretically productive in some way. We're only concerned with useful Kara cancels. I'll say this a lot, just because it's useful, that doesn't mean it's practical. It just means it technically does something, compared to most Kara cancels, which do literally nothing. This video also only cares about strange behavior coming from the button leniency system, not empty cancels or whiff cancels in general. We're only concerned with true Kara cancels. Canceling normals into specials, tags, snapbacks, and supers will not be discussed. We also won't be discussing canceling special moves into supers. Don't get me wrong, there's a ton of rich tech there, way too much to cover here. This video is about something else. Lastly, I can only cover known Kara cancels, which is just me acknowledging that I'm not psychic. At the time of writing, there are at least 2 more characters on the way, and older characters are still technically open to be changed. I can't cover tech that didn't exist before this video was published, so this is only up to date as of the current build. Alright, let's talk about some tech. Squiggly and Parasol can extend their normal throw range with Light Kick into Light Punch. This isn't actually that useful on its own. See, attacking during a dash causes you to slide forward a bit during the attack's startup. even if you attack during the pre-dash frames before movement starts. This is commonly called a micro-dash. So, Squiggly can do a 7-frame normal throw, or light kick into light punch to do an 8-frame throw with slightly larger range, or she can do a throw after 1 frame of a dash to do an 8-frame throw with even larger range. But her dash startup is kinda long, so she has to wait a while to benefit from the forward movement. And technically speaking, the forward movement of her standing light kick stacks with the movement of a micro dash, allowing her to get even greater forward movement. This micro dash Kara throw has 9 frames of startup, but it outranges walking forward for 2 frames and then throwing, and it happens much sooner than waiting for her pre-dash frames to end. Parasol doesn't benefit from this nearly as much, since her dash moves much faster and starts movement extremely quickly. Honestly, just doing a full-assed dash into a throw is often better than trying to Kara throw, but it does exist. She can do this to extend her throw range if she wants to. Dashing is just generally better. This is using the same principle, but with punch into punch to cancel the first frame of a normal into a forward dash. Both Painwheel's standing medium punch and Band's standing heavy punch move them forward slightly on the very first frame. So, for example, Band could do an input like heavy punch into medium punch into light punch and light kick to get something like a Kara throw, since he steps forward a tiny bit into dash startup into a sliding micro dash throw. This is slightly more range than a normal micro dash throw. However, you can technically do this into basically any simple command if you're a wizard. Heavy punch into medium punch into light punch gives you a micro dash jab with a tiny bit of extra range. Heavy punch into medium punch into down light kick puts a bit of extra range onto a micro dash crouching light kick, and so on. The extra range is extremely tiny, and the input is very difficult. It's a lot of work and risk for a less than 1% improvement. But a Kara doesn't have to be practical to be useful. Being barely noticeable or too hard to use practically makes it a bad Kara cancel. It doesn't make it not a Kara cancel. Similarly, Skullgirls is not a game where extremely precise micro-spacing on the ground is super important or even really realistic to attempt. But, for the sake of completion, Squiggly's standing medium punch and Eliza's standing heavy punch move backwards on the first frame. It's theoretically possible to do something like back heavy punch into medium punch into light punch to connect a jab from very slightly farther away than you otherwise could have, but we're really pushing the boundaries of useful with something like that. Consider this documentation of an oddity, not suggestion for tech you should practice. Here's an interesting one. Big Band's jumping light punch is -5 on hit as an air-to-air. This means even when he lands the attack, his opponent recovers before he does. Attempting to air throw after a jumping light punch is fake. A mashing opponent will stuff a jab in your face for trying. Unless you do this. Here, Band lands a jumping light punch. When that happens, he's able to chain it into a jumping light kick. This is normal combo theory. However, remember that the first frame of light punch or light kick normals can cancel into a throw, so he plinks light kick into light punch, allowing him to cancel into a Kara throw at a time where he couldn't cancel to a normal throw. Here's a chart in case that wasn't clear. This also works very well with Peacock, since her jumping light punch is also normally minus on hit. This technique is universal, since all characters can chain their jumping light punch into jumping light kick, and everybody can cancel the first 2 frames of jumping light kick into an air throw. This is technically kind of useful on everybody. If you're perfect with this, basically every character can air throw a few frames sooner than usual, shifting the tech window sooner than most people are used to looking for it. Left side throws on the first frame after her jab recovers. Right side throws on the first frame the victim is throwable. The escape window isn't shorter, but it closes sooner than usual, making it harder to react to. Peacock and Fortune might seem like odd characters to demonstrate this with, since those two could cancel their air jab into an air dash, and cancel the air dash into a throw for the same effect. But a chained throw works even after you've used your air dash, and lets you keep it if you still have it. If you watch that Peacock example again, you'll see that I've already used my air dash when I go for the air throw, and Fortune typically relies on her air dash to follow up after an air throw. Ultimately, though, this is another technique that's very precise and requires a lot of work for a very small improvement. It's a very minor optimization, not a staple technique, but it is there. It works on the ground, too, but you have to be able to chain light punch into light kick on the ground to chain a jab into a ground throw. Not everybody can do that. Here's a list. Philia, Peacock, Fortune, Painwheel, Valentine, Band, and Beowulf can chain a ground light punch into a grounded normal throw. Bella, Parasol, Double, Squiggly, Eliza, Robo, Annie, and Umbrella cannot. Fukua is weird. She's the only character who can chain light punch into light kick on the ground, who still can't chain into a throw for some reason. Put her down as no due to jank. Using a grounded chain throw to shift the tech window sooner is much less useful, because people generally prefer to jump out of throws instead of tech them. It works for air throws because they can't just jump out. But you can still pull some cheeky bullshit. If you can weasel your opponent into a position where they're forced to block a jab 6 inches off the floor, you can cancel into a throw when landing cancels their block stun, catching them with a throw much sooner than they'd expect. Characters with grounded chained throws can abuse this by disguising their tick throw as a dropped combo for extra surprise factor. Now, there is one other use for this. Kind of. Normally, Beowulf can do air normals during a hop dash, but not his air throw. But both jumping light normals can cancel the first 2 frames to an air throw, so it works if you just plink it. There's very little practical reason to do this, but it is kinda funny that it exists. I'll admit that this one is kind of riding the line for being a true Kara cancel. I said we weren't going to talk about canceling normals into specials, but this is a case where plinking is so much easier than the alternative that it might as well be a true Kara cancel. Bella's Merry Gorilla command throw has a dead zone, causing it to fail if used too close to the opponent. However, her standing light kick moves her backwards slightly. This is just enough to scoot herself out of the dead zone, so down back light kick into light punch basically doesn't have a dead zone. Normally, point blank MGR will never work against Squiggly. However, KMGR will cause the inside of Bella's palm to just barely graze Squiggly's butt, which counts as a successful throw, so the game just gives it to Bella and pretends like Squiggly was dead center the whole time. It's worth noting that this only works for a raw MGR. If you try this after, say, a blocked crouching medium punch, then you'll just get a normal MGR. Bella can't cancel crouching medium punch into standing light kick, so she can't get backward movement there. In fact, none of her moves can cancel into standing light kick, so KMGR can't be cancelled into. Okay, we're getting to some spicy stuff now. Remember how I pointed out that Bella can cancel the startup of light punch lock and load into diamond drop? This isn't actually that useful, because the only version of lock and load that cancels into the command grab is the version without any armor. But it is instructive. Anytime a light punch or light kick move shares a motion with a command grab, it opens the door for Kara attack. And, well, light kick tumbling run does kind of overlap with the quarter circle forward. If you have back charged for tumbling run, then down forward light kick into light punch gives a brief run cancelled into a command grab. And tumbling run does have armor starting on the first frame, so... Now, hold on. This isn't nearly as crazy as it looks. Here's a few reasons why this is actually kinda really bad. 1. This requires charge. Getting a back charge doesn't take long, but it is slightly restrictive and limits how quickly Bella can bust this out. 2. The armor only lasts for a single frame, sometimes 2, depending on how exactly you input it. This is extremely precise, and it's possible to blow up on you even if you're frame perfect and get an ideal read because your opponent screwed up and slightly delayed their attack by a fraction of a second. The protection is too brief to bet your life on, and the consequences for failure are so steep you are definitely gambling with your life here. For reference, the window for Big Band's parry is like 17 frames, and the window for a parry in Street Fighter III is like 7 frames. KDD is, at most, 2 frames, often 1 frame. 3. Reversal KDD can't be buffered, and it's actually frame perfect if you're recovering from hit stun or block stun. Even though reversal KDD seems like a solid option in very specific circumstances, it's always frame perfect. See, Skullgirls has a short buffer period for reversal attacks. If you try to do a special move during the last 4 frames of your hit stun, block stun, or knockdown recovery, the game will save the input until you're able to act and do the attack on the soonest possible frame, making reversals much easier. You want a reversal move on the first actionable frame. Hitting the green window works, but hitting the attack button during the blue window will store the input until the first actionable frame, as if you hit the green window. This makes reversals easier to time. However, if you plink the throw to get KDD, the game doesn't buffer a KDD, it just buffers a regular command grab, which doesn't have armor. Hit light kick 1 frame too late, and you'll risk getting hit and can't get the armor up in time. Hit light kick 1 frame too soon, and you'll just buffer a regular command grab and get hit anyway. KDD is entirely hype tech, not a practical tool. This should only be used to dunk on people, rather than actually trying to win fights. It's not the only throw of its kind, though. Painwheel actually has something kinda similar, in a thing I've been calling Hatred Kara throw. During Hatred install, all of Painwheel's normals with Hatred Guard will become armored starting on the first frame. This means a light punch into light kick input will result in 1 or 2 frames of armored startup, followed by a normal throw. HKT suffers from exactly the same problems as KDD. It's armored for a very short time and can't be buffered as a reversal. Making things even dumber, it's tied to a temporary and kind of expensive power-up state that Painwheel doesn't often have access to. However, it has similar hype potential. I made a video on this a while ago, but when the button input leniency was added to the double punch dash command, it allowed Robo and Hatred install Painwheel to get armor for a single frame and cancel that into a dash. Since dashes are fully actionable, this could be used repeatedly to improvise a frame-perfect parry. Something like this. Oh, whoops. I guess that's not a thing anymore. Sorry guys, this getting fixed is almost definitely my fault too. Now, this is an option select rather than a Kara cancel. If something hits Robo or Painwheel's armor on that one frame, then they'll be unable to dash and will get stuck doing the normal. But if nothing hits them, they'll get a dash instead. For clarity, before the fix, heavy punch into medium punch into light punch and light kick would have given you one frame of armor into one frame of a dash into a normal throw. If something hit the armor, you'd absorb the hit and throw them, like KDD or HKT. Now, after the fix, heavy punch into medium punch into light punch and light kick still gives you one frame of armor into a dash into a throw. But if something hits the armor, you'll be stuck doing the standing heavy punch. So you get a standing heavy punch if you're hit and a throw if you aren't. This is by far the least useful of the useful Kara cancels, but it does theoretically do something, so I've mentioned it for the sake of completion. Pressing two punch buttons allows Painwheel to exit flight into a state called Unfly. If she presses heavy punch into punch during Hatred install, she'll be armored for one frame before entering the Unfly state. This has basically no realistic applications. See, Painwheel can block during Unfly, which due to a bug-turned feature, greatly reduces her block stun, but this only applies to the one hit. Being forced to block a second hit puts her in normal block stun. This means the only theoretical application of Kara Unfly is to armor one hit, then Unfly guard cancel a second hit, during Hatred install, timed frame perfect, against a move or sequence with two very rapid hits extremely close together, but no more than two hits, while Painwheel is high enough off the ground for Unfly guard cancel to matter. Not only have I not been able to engineer a hypothetical situation in training mode where this is the best answer, I've had a really hard time coming up with a situation where it's even clear that this is helping her somehow. Too precise and situational to even be useful in a tool-assisted showcase, but it technically fits the requirements for this video. I do know about it, it is a true Kara cancel, and one frame of armor isn't literally nothing. Basically any special move that uses medium punch, medium kick, heavy punch, or heavy kick for its input can cancel the first two frames into a snapback. So let's cover all of those really quick. Before we get into this, I have to answer an important question. If armor works here, wouldn't invincibility work too? And isn't invincibility just strictly better than armor? In this case, no. The largest window of protection you can stick at the beginning of a snapback is 2 frames. So if Peacock uses the input leniency to Kara cancel medium bang into a snapback for invincibility, she can only get 2 frames of protection before the vulnerable snapback startup happens. Most attacks are active for at least 3 frames, which means even if you're frame perfect, the invincibility just barely doesn't last long enough. Which frame works here? Frame 9 is too early, and frame 10 is too late. It's literally impossible to dodge this attack, because even the max duration is too short. However, if Bella plinks lock and load into a snapback, she'll have a window of 2 frames with armor. If a move touches her armor, it stops being active. All you really need to know for this is that armor works when the duration is super short, but invincibility doesn't. So, Bella can do down forward medium punch into medium kick, or heavy punch into heavy kick, for a snapback with 2 frames of armor at the start. You can't do this with kick into punch if you have back charge, because instant run follow-ups have priority. You'll get instant Kanchow or instant battle butt instead of an armored snapback. Big Band works with medium punch into medium kick, or heavy punch into heavy kick, or with kick into punch if you prefer, though all of these require back charge. Though this is also pointless, since this requires charge and has a 2-frame window for success, and Parry into snapback takes less damage, doesn't require charge, and has a 17-frame window for success. But whatever, the armored snap does exist. Both Brass and A-Train do move forward a tiny bit on the first few frames, so the armored snaps also have a tiny bit of extra range. Squiggly can do this too, since her punch stance moves forward a tiny bit during the startup. But people basically only use snapback to end a combo, so that extra range will basically never come up. Lastly, Parasol can also do down forward medium kick into medium punch if she has back charge, which will summon her bodyguard and do a snapback at the same time. None of these are really useful for anything, but it's technically possible to get usable armor or protection at the beginning of a move that otherwise would not have that. And while invincibility would only work against moves with less than 3 active frames, there are a tiny handful of moves like that. I guess for the sake of completion, these are the invincible snapbacks that could be used frame perfectly against very rare, very specific moves. Peacock can do down forward medium punch into medium kick for strike invincibility. This only allows her to snap in the character in slot 2. Fukuwa can do down forward heavy kick into heavy punch for strike invincibility. This only snaps in the character in slot 3. Beowulf can do down forward heavy punch into heavy kick for strike invincibility. This only snaps in the character in slot 3 and only works if he's holding his chair. I mean, he only has a regular snapback if he's holding the chair anyway, but whatever. Robo can do down forward medium kick into medium punch for throw invincibility. This only snaps in the character in slot 2. Now, I don't have a clip of this, and it would look the same anyway, but Robo can also do down forward heavy kick into heavy punch for throw invincibility, because for some reason, just the first 2 frames of heavy kick danger got throw invincibility at some point. Moves with full invincibility don't have a Kara snap window, for some reason. Like I mentioned before, the invincibility would be so brief it would fail against 98% of the moves in the game no matter how you time it, so I'm not really sure why they don't have this. Additionally, while Band's medium beat extend, Eliza's uppercut, and Umbrella's Hunger and Rush are only strike invincible, they still don't have a Kara snap window. Only Peacock, Fukuwa, and Beowulf's strike reversals have a Kara window. I also made a video to explain this one already, but I'll cover it very quickly again. While Double has Catheads active, pressing any attack button will command her heads to attack. This happens on the first frame of the attack's startup. However, the first frame of standing punch normals can be cancelled into a dash by pressing punch into punch. This allows her to attack with Catheads without losing the ability to block. This is actually the end of the list. It's not necessarily the end of this project, though. To prove this list is comprehensive, I have to make a video explaining why other inputs aren't useful, which should require less explanation, so it shouldn't be as long. That's all for now. I know that most of this isn't practical in a real fight, but I think it's good to make a comprehensive list to demonstrate that there isn't any weird tech hiding anywhere. Thanks for watching. Peace.